Hi guys, John here from Warrior Spirit Martial Arts in North Wales. I've just had the privilege of spending an hour and a bit speaking with Les Bubka of Les Bubka Karate Jutsu in Guildford and Andy Allen of Applied Shotokan over in Nova Scotia in Canada. We covered a lot of topics over the hour, including grappling and kata applications, our discovery of the practical karate movement, and a whole host of other things. I really enjoyed the chat with the guys, and I'm sure you will too. So here we go.
Right. So, guys, welcome to the call. I'm here with Les Bubka and Andy Allen. So, Les is from Guildford in the UK, and Andy is in Canada. How are you both doing?
Great.
Very, very good. Thank you.
Good, good. So, tell us a little bit about yourselves then. Who wants to go first?
Okay. Well. I'm Les Bubka. Migrated from Poland to UK for temporary to move to New Zealand. Stayed here. Have no chance of moving away now. Got married to the English person. Running a small club. Main focus on mental health. Combining karate with my experience in wrestling and whatever I kind of learn along the way.
Cool, that's good. It wasn't as much of a car crash as you promised us, Les. You promised us a bad intro, but there we go. How about you, Andy?
So I've been training for 31 years now. Started in Shotokan karate, and long story short, I started to have questions about practicality of the 3K teaching pedagogy, and started to branch out, do some cross training. Did a little bit of judo. Then I realized I was way too old to get slammed on the mats. And so I've been doing jiu-jitsu off and on for the last 2.5 years-ish. Yeah. So I have, as you know, YouTube channel, Applied Shotokan. And my original plan for that was to just do Bunkai stuff. It's branched out into be a lot of different things. But I'm very much moved from 3K to PK, from 3K karate to practical karate.
Perfect. Yeah, I do like your YouTube channel. What I like about actually both of you do hit a lot on the sort of behind the scenes and the mindset stuff of the the training as well. It's not just the it's all well and good having the Bunkai stuff, but it's really great the way you sort of put out all the information about your syllabus, your grading footage, and all that. And Les, obviously yourself with your sort of personal development stuff. That they're both really great channels that I like to follow a lot. So. So today we're really going to talk about the what's the proper word for it? I guess like I know it's almost like a heathen thing in karate these days of grappling in the martial arts. So I remember a while back Ian did a podcast about the martial arts and is there grappling in the martial arts and in karate, and he made a joke going, is there grappling and throwing in karate? Yes. Thanks for tuning in. See you later. Because obviously there is, right? So kind of what kind of experience have you guys found? Les, you're almost a grappler separately to being a karate guy, or do you just sort of implement both?
I would say both. I think that my karate is so mixed up now with the wrestling. I cannot say I am a karateka or a wrestler. I think people get the misconception that I'm very good at wrestling. I'm not. I only been training with the team for 4 years, and then I never had a chance to compete because wrestling was redone. Is main focus on the younger audience, so they all focus on Olympics. And if you're coming there after 20, there's not much chance you can actually get into that kind of environment. So I've been more of a dummy. So I learned how to do failover, and I'm gonna use the phrase that Matt Jardine used on the podcast today. I loved it. I learned the language of the mat. So yeah. I become comfortable being on the floor and being thrown and throw people as well. So I kind of merged it. I never had a purpose to be a wrestler. When I joined in the wrestling club, it was always in mind of improving my karate. I do like wrestling. I think honestly, if I went to as a child to wrestling, I never would do karate because I like cuddles. But yeah, yeah. So mostly karateka, but somewhere in between. I suppose that most of the people's opinion is I'm not a karateka because I do weird stuff. So I stay there. I'm borderline somewhere in no man's land.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
you seem to attract the odd critic once in a while, of the Jupiter belt guy.
Oh yeah.
and that guy on TikTok as well. Yeah, you do draw him in, don't you?
Yeah.
I
Well,
missed the TikTok thing. What was that all about?
I don't know. The guy just started commenting that I'm a fake martial artist and I shouldn't be teaching, and he's gonna come and beat me up because he's going and exposing fake martial artists. And his master, Shihan master, taught him that only true way and stuff like that. But definitely he had the mental health issues, and I
Yeah.
looked on his channel and he had sadly, I don't know if it's true, but it looks like it's true, his son passing away a few years.
Oh, yeah.
So I can kind of understand that the only language he can communicate is aggression and sadness. I probably would be the same if one of my children died.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
No,
so.
I tried him help him, and I actually gave him an opportunity to enroll in my karate for mental health, and he stopped commenting then. So
I mean, I wish I could say that I was so nice to him. He kind of caught me on a bad day, so I was giving it back a little bit too. So like one of the things that kind of caught my attention about what you said then, Les, is you seem to have gone like I feel like mine and Andy's path is more. We were doing 3K karate, and then we saw other martial arts and started asking questions as you know. We did the other karate, and then we kind of saw the cracks and then went to explore this stuff. But it seems like you did it on more of a deliberate way. You did your karate and then you saw wrestling as a good thing that was supplement, if that makes sense.
it's not necessarily that. What I was fortunate about is my teacher was a kind of equivalent of Ian. So we done a lot of bunkai, lots of thinking on katas, but kind of from the perspective of a knockdown karate. So we've been always missing the punches to the head. And if you train it without punching, you've got the scars, like Andy like to call them. I like that expression. And it took me a long time to get used to it, to keep my hands up. My Kempo teacher and good friend always says, "Oh, you look like a tourist looking from behind the bush." So my head's popping out and got punches in.
Okay.
But I was fortunate that my teacher always encouraged us to cross training. So from day one, nearly, I've been exposed to seminars, different approaches. And by chance, we lost our dojo, and one of the mates in school was doing wrestling. He said, "Hey, come to my coach, speak about it, and you might have a hole." So we went, we got a dojo with them, and then we had the agreement that the wrestlers can come train with us for free, and we can come to wrestlers for free. So I went there, put my pants on the first high throw, and decided, yeah, that's the way to go. I'm going in and I'm going to learn throws, because we had a lot of throws, but they've been not perfect, the karate throws.
Yeah. It's something again you said there is quite interesting, and I'll kind of throw this one to Andy then. You said that your teacher was quite open to cross training. Is that something you experienced when you were doing karate, Andy?
I'd say no. So when I first started training, my instructor was very traditional. Like he's Chinese, but he really adopted kind of the Japanese JKA way of running a dojo, right? Once you get to know him, he's a great guy, but he has this sternness, this exterior. And it was a while before I felt comfortable having conversations with him. But over the years, we had conversations, and over the last several years, he'd actually asked my advice, what I thought about certain things, what was going on in the club and in the organization, and so on. But in the early days, there was this. It wasn't so much that was explicitly said, but there was this understanding that you don't go train elsewhere, and that wasn't just in our dojo. It was within the organization. So don't go train with the Taekwondo guys. Not that I want to really, but because they're bad. And don't go train with the Kempo guys because they're bad. That guy does Shotokan, but he's not organization. He's also bad. And you just hear things from different senior students. And so, okay, I'll just stay here and do my thing. So there's this, it's interesting. There's a culture of conformity in Japan, right? It's a culture where, at least I've never been to Japan, but from my understanding of knowledgeable people who have spent time there, you don't really question people who are higher up in the hierarchy. And this culture of conformity is do what you're told, and you kind of carry on. And that's related to this this sense of loyalty. So in Shotokan, you know the Dojo-kun, right, John? The seek perfect your character. The second line is be faithful. And we have this in the West. We have this notion of what it means to be faithful. I think for a long time, decades ago, there's this love affair or the obsession with everything Japanese. We tried to kind of embrace these ways of teaching, these ways of thinking, and so on. But we're not Japanese. We're Westerners, and so there's this misplaced idea of what loyalty means, and loyalty it ties in with this notion of not cross-training, not going training with other people, and staying loyal to your dojo and only being taught by that particular instructor. And I think that's very flawed, because if you're only depriving yourself of opportunities to grow, right? So I got into the grappling thing not that long ago. First, I just was trying to emulate what Ian Abernethy's doing on his Bunkai videos. Then I guess it was 6 years ago, I did some judo. And then after that, jiu-jitsu. I'm still doing jiu-jitsu now. But I've seen things in jiu-jitsu. It's like, crap, that is right in Basai Dai. This is you know, the Gankaku, like where you connect your legs together. Like yeah, that you see that all the time in submission wrestling and jiu-jitsu. It's you're just standing up instead of laying down. It's unbelievable. Like this position, you can kind of get that underhook around the leg to pull yourself over, pull the head down. You get your figure four around the neck for a triangle choke. But I would have seen that, and I would, if I didn't do any grappling before, I'd still be thinking that it's for balance. I'm avoiding the sweep and all the nonsense that you see. So last I said the same thing to you when you interviewed me. I ramble.
It's all good.
So here I go. So this idea of conformity, not rocking the boat, not asking questions. I might get in trouble for talking about this, but what the hell? My old organization. A number of years ago, there was a document it was a draft document that I was privy to because I was kind of senior in the organization. So it was a document on the standardization of kata. So the organization I was in was quite large, probably 100,000 people worldwide. And you know, if you do Basai Dai in Eastern Canada, it might look a bit different than what you'd see in Louisiana, different in UK, different in India. So the idea was to standardize all of the movements. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's have some consistency within that organization versus that other Shotokan organization. Fine. And so for reference, they said, we're going to use the Best Karate series. John, you're probably familiar with that, by Nakayama. The Best Karate series as reference. This is how you do it.
It's one of the things that we were like particularly exposed to all these old traditional masters. It was the club that I was part of was quite insular. I keep getting people referring to old past masters, and I'm like, I have no idea what they are. The only ones that I know of are the ones that I've come up with in independent research. So right. Yeah.
So in this document on page 1, and when I first read this, this was 3 years ago. I think I was about to test for my 7th Dan. And not that I expected to have any kind of influence in the organization, because even at 7th Dan, I was pretty low down the totem pole, right? But I was kind of into this practical karate movement. And what I read on that first page was disappointing for me. And I knew then that things were never going to change if I were to stay in the organization in terms of teaching pedagogy. And I actually just jotted this down. I had to look it up earlier. So there's a very short passage in this document. So again, they were standardized the katas according to the Best Karate series, but there were some ambiguities in there with Japanese translation. So where there's ambiguities, we're going to go to this master, Master X, within the organization, and his notes from when he took the JKA instructor course back in Japan. So anyways, it says, the practitioner can find applications for many, if not all, of the movements in a kata. And I assume this is in response to the wave of Bunkai stuff that's coming out in social media at the time. However, the Bunkai or application of a technique is secondary. In the insert organization name here, the development of body movement is the primary purpose for practicing kata. And so that left me a sinking feeling in my chest, knowing that things are never going to change. So basically, with what I was saying about conformity and preserving, not changing, we see this mountain of information out on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, all these wonderfully practical things you can do with Gankaku and Basadai and Jump. But that's not for us. We're going to just practice kata for developing our body movement.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that was hard to read. So for me, then I really started thinking about my future in the organization, and it was actually 3 years after that I finally decided to leave. I had my syllabus written, I had all my ducks in a row, and I made the move and joined the WCA.
That's cool. It's first things first. I know you're concerned about getting in trouble for saying that, but if this is going out on my socials, I've only got about 3 followers so far anyway. So you know, unless it's Master X is listening, I think you're okay.
Yeah.
It's a shame, really.
Can I add something on that Japanese culture and formality? Because I've got one of my good friends who you can see all the artwork behind me. Japanese is a Japanese lady, Akemi Lucas, and on one of her seminars, she said to me, "Oh, it's lovely you doing all this traditional stuff, keeping the karate alive and stuff, because nobody does that in Japan anymore. You guys are great." It's just, you know, we're trying to be more Japanese than Japanese people, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, taking it to the new level when nobody cares. Same word for, I was talking with James Hatch. He lives in Tokyo in Japan, and he's like, you know, we are becoming a relics of the past, being in the future, trying to replicate something which people moved on.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's
I love your
definitely true.
T-shirt. I love your T-shirt, Andy. High kites forever.
Take it forever.
I'm the odd one out for this one.
Work for you, Les.
What was I going to say? Yeah, it's a shame, and I agree with what you say there, Les, because the movement, the practical karate movement, is it kind of rolls with the thing of you have to. It's evolve or die, isn't it? And if they're doubling down on the sticking to the old movement traditions and the body conditioning, like you were saying, Andy, it's a bit disappointing, and I can imagine kind of the hope getting sucked away from you when you read that line, right? You got it in your heart, things are changing, and like, maybe I'm part of this organization, and you read that line, it's like, oh, all right, fair enough, yeah, it's not happening.
Yeah, not gonna change.
So I'll just throw in my experience over here then. So I was part of a 3K club. They're fine, they were great at what they did, but what happened after a while is my ex-chief instructor left his chief instructor, who was very 3K. He started mixing with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is obviously a really, really hands-on, in-your-face art. And you know, by this time that we've been starting to train, I've been doing karate for say 5 or 6 years, and then this new jiu-jitsu thing comes and it gets introduced to the class, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 6 months, and I feel that I would sooner rely on this to defend myself than everything I've been taught. That makes sense, right? I mean, I'm sure you get it from your point of view. So I'm like, okay, if I do get surrounded by 8 dudes, then I'll rely on my kata as long as they attack me in the same way that they're meant to. But if I get attacked for real, someone grabs me, oh, right, okay, that's the jiu-jitsu that I've learned more effective defense, more effective principles in 6 months, right? Yeah. So how do you guys fight? Well, I'll go to you because you're directly into jiu-jitsu, Andy. So you've seen a lot of the movements from kata in jiu-jitsu. Kind of like, how much of an eye-opener was it for you when you started training jiu-jitsu?
So my first jiu-jitsu instructor, and I knew I was going to kind of have light bulb moments, that there was going to be this connection. We were doing defense. I think we were talking about this online actually through Messenger, John. Defense against a single leg takedown. Right? So they have your leg between their legs, right, and they're kind of tucking it behind their hips, sort of thing. And so anyway, we did this looping drill. It just kept looping, where you take turns, which I really like because it gets the repetitions, and I do a lot of karate drills like that. And so in the motion, and I can't really explain this in words per se, but if their head's kind of inside your thigh, you push it, you make some space, and then you kind of put a frame out there, and then you hook under their armpit kind of like a whizzer, and then you grab their arms and you pull it up as you stomp your leg down to the ground.
Right.
And
Sure.
And then that Fukomigari, the side thrust kick. I thought that is Basadai. So I'm in this drill again. I'm so excited. Then I showed my instructor. He said, that's in a kata, because he knew I'd do karate. And so I'm showing the motions here. So when you push the head, that's this. And then when you get the whizzer, that's this motion. And he says, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't give a rat's ass.
Yeah.
But, and so I think for someone who's a grappler and and you show them how what they are doing fits into a kata, they don't give a damn. But for us karate people, especially for those of us who went through years and years of the 3K where there's no meaning behind kata, it's just for body movement. When we see something that works and it makes sense that real grapplers are doing, that's really exciting for us.
Yeah.
People who don't do forms-based martial arts don't get that excitement. Okay, we're just defending a single leg, so be it. But yeah, there's been other times where I've seen those connections, and that's exciting to me. Now, whoever made Basada or Pasai, was that their intention? Probably not. But I don't. And who was it? Daniel Marino was recently talking about this on Facebook. I think he had some criticism, as we all do from time to time.
No way. On the internet.
Yeah. So we don't know what the original intent was between this movement and this movement, and so we have no idea. But if we find something and the application fits the shape of the kata, we'll call it the kata oyo, the bunkai, whatever you want to call it. And I'm okay with that. So I come up with some ideas. I'm damn sure that that's not the original idea, but if it works, it works. That's the way I
absolutely.
Yeah. There's another fellow, the other guy, his name is Paul Presti. He's with the Corey Uchinati, Passion McCarthy's group. And he has a very small YouTube channel. I wish he put out more content and promote it more, because he gets some good stuff there. But he also, he has some stuff for Gangaku and for the opening movement of MP. So that movement of MP where you have your hands stacked like this, you drop down to one leg, he's using that as a takedown from a clinch. You have an overhook. It's that's what you call it, a pick. You put that on the outside of the knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the arm trap, you pick, and you kind of put your shoulder forward, you kneel down, and they go down. There's another fella from Cody Stewart, Canadian, also with the KU. He has some good stuff. What kata was it? Gangaku, I think. No, it's Basadai, this one again. And he's basically using it with the kick is a Uchimata. First, you raise the knee, get him in the gut. You got a 2-on-1 grip on their haymaker arm, right? And then your right knee goes to their gut, and then you reap that close leg, that left leg, and it's just a beautiful Uchimata, inner thigh throw. There's all kinds of good stuff out there. And some people promote their stuff, and some people just put it up and don't do much with it, and it doesn't get the attention it deserves.
Yeah. It's. I think this is something maybe, lads, that you suffer a bit from, is not wanting to, over promote your content. Because I think we spoke about, putting some. You were asking for suggestions for fundraisers or something, and I suggested that you use it to kind of boost your content and get your message out there a little bit more. And you seemed a little bit reluctant to do that, but it's the kind of thing that, if these guys have got good content, Les, your stuff is amazing. It needs to be in front of people, and unfortunately, sometimes you got to pay to play with these kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just my insecurities coming in. I had to be judged, although I'm getting used to it. And actually took your advice, and that all the funds from Christian seminars going to me to my project for the current for mental health. But I want to come back to the earlier question, which Andy was saying, that training with wrestlers and getting excited about it. I actually had the completely opposite stuff. So we've been doing kata, and the wrestling coach came in. He's now nearly 70. And he looked on our kata. He said, why'd you do that with this? What's that movement for? So I show him, let's say it was uchiuke, yeah? So I said, oh, you coming here, you cover, you strike. He said, well, come here, I show you something, yeah? And he done on me arm drag. That was years ago, yeah? And I was like, shit, that's the uchiuke. That makes so much more sense than covering here, hiding and trying to strike and then grab, instead of just, and I always had the problem with all the blocks, that leading hand that we're going for us is the hand goes forward and the other one comes over. Yeah. So this is tactile, something to grab or hold, and this one is to drag. So wrestling kind of decipher for me the use of the other hand, that you actually are holding already to something else, and hence the hikite, all the stuff coming in, and But yeah, with the YouTube channels and stuff like that, it took me a long time. My channel is 13 years old or 14 years old, and I never had the confidence to actually put and promote it. Only recent years, I think the same time when Andy started, but Andy's got a more clever content and more structured content, so he's doing much better than me. I'm kind of a random foreigner putting random stuff up, and I only now started to do. I think what Andy done well is starting his own group, the Applied Shotokan group on
That
Facebook,
helps.
and that grow and help, because I see down now I've got the more views with my group, the Karate for Mental Health, and that's growing slowly. So I think that's the way to do. And I think you done, John, well, starting that really early, because you building everything in a web and you getting that people on all the platforms.
Yeah.
And I never have kicked anyone out of my Facebook group for getting too popular.
Yeah.
Are we going to get sued for this now? Just hinting at that. So I think it's kind of cool what you said then, Les, that you've got so your wrestling coach kind of took what you were showing with karate and like played with it a little bit and helped you explore it from an outside point of view. I've got a friend he's still in the jiu-jitsu circles that I was in, and he's well into his jiu-jitsu, knows all the applications, knows all the self-defenses and everything like that. And I've actually sent him my katas, just the Pinan series to begin with, and asked him to kind of take a look at them. I've given him the idea of here's what a kata is. This is kind of what to look out for. Don't get too caught up in the perfection of the form or anything. If anything looks similar but it works, go with it. And just to kind of take it from a entirely grappling jiu-jitsu point of view. He's got no experience of karate. I'm kind of sad to say this, but he said, I always thought karate was just a way for 8-year-olds to get black belts. And that kind of, it kind of hit me there. But anyway.
Then can you call it karate?
I have to call it martial arts. No. So it's cool having like outside people looking at your stuff and taking interest. And I don't think that would have been quite possible if it wasn't for this outside movement, or the practical movement kind of giving us these ideas. What do you think?
I think I'm not a grappler. I do some jiu-jitsu. I can't pretend that I'm awesome at it. Okay, I'm still a white belt. But I think if you don't have any grappling experience, you're never going to come up with anything meaningful from kata. If you haven't been exposed to grappling, whether it's wrestling or jiu-jitsu or submission wrestling, like whatever, you have to have some working knowledge of leverage on joints and mechanics for choking, for off balance, and you have to have some basic knowledge of that before you're going to figure out what this double block means. And that can be an arm drag too. You kind of parry down the hand, you get behind the elbow like this, right, and you pull in. You have to either get in there yourself and find out the hard way, or have someone mentoring you. But the 3K guy coming right out of the 3K dojo, you're not going to have any imagination for what that would be, or this is always going to be a block for you. Right? it can be a frame, it can be a choke, it can be lots of things, but you're never going to get beyond that blocking mentality because it's Tanuki waza. So you definitely have to get out there and get your ass kicked by some grapplers.
God, yeah. I mean, it's interesting what you say then about having to get in there and experience and that a mentorship thing. So I think it was Can Fu TV on a recent episode. He was saying about the gist of it was, if I don't want you to be a better student than me, if I've still got to be better than you, then karate gets progressively worse and worse and worse and worse, right? Mm-hmm. So if I always keep my students beneath me and they keep their students worse than them and they keep their students worse than them. So I'm kind of writing up a thing about cross training now anyway, but one of the things I was thinking was, if I want to get good at throwing, I've got to get good at throwing myself, and I've got to send my guys to throwing people so that their throwing gets good, so they can teach good throwing as well, right? Or otherwise the throwing in the martial arts gets progressively worse and worse and worse. So what kind of experience do you, let's take right, I would ask this now. Do you take much form from the kick from the wrestling? So you see, like you said before, with the arm drag, do you take a lot of that from it, or do you just see a lot more of the body mechanics as opposed to the like applications and moves? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Do I take a form? All wrestling is tactile. I don't learn by looking at things. I learn more better by looking by things than reading about and listening about them. But there's nothing that teaches you the best than feeling it. Especially in wrestling, you need to feel it. If somebody can explain to you the lock or a drag or something, and everybody's gonna do different. If you understand how to do it and you've done it a few times, then you can transfer it. It's very difficult to put it on paper. That's why I'm struggling with my syllabus, because wrestling is not like karate that is got a names for everything. It's more groups. So you've got I think I had a exchange with what's his name from Canada, Toraguchi.
In Ontario. Oh my gosh.
But we know I can't remember his name, but he said that on my videos I'm doing a throw which meant to be the arm is under hook, and then on the last stage I grab the arm. In wrestling realms, this is the exactly same throw. It's just the point of contact is different, but the mechanics of the throw. And he was saying no, it's not for us it's completely different throw. Yes, the throw is maybe called differently, but the body mechanics are nearly the same. It's just the placement of the arm, and you can do that the same throw without that arm. So you've got the groups of throws, and they all got the same body mechanics with the fine details. So for me, it's very difficult to describe something on paper. Do this throw, because we've got especially in wrestling, you don't always seek for the perfect form. You pull the throw wherever you can and whenever you can. So it might be a dodgy as, sorry for swearing, shit. But if it won, it's a valid technique. And everybody's got the, many techniques are taking names from people because they change something and it's their technique and people start learning it. And that's the name from it. So, you got the Jack Sarov throw because the Mr. Jack Sarov was doing the Kataguruma. And it was perfect for him. But variation of Kataguruma in wrestling is hundreds. Every individual does individually. So for my students, feeling is the best. If I can show them, they doing adaptation for their own because everybody's built differently. And if it works. The perfect test is going and do a randori, wrestling randori. And if you can pull off your techniques, it's okay. If not, we need to work, or maybe you have to work on something else. But as you said, for me, there's no bigger pleasure for me when my students overtakes me and beats my ass. That makes me proud because I done a good job. If that's not happening, that means I'm not teaching correctly.
See, that's the thing with jiu-jitsu that I've experienced, at least when so you said, Andy, your jiu-jitsu is more sort of ground and sport based than it is self-defense and stand-up based. Is that right?
The stuff I've been doing now, yeah.
Yeah. So when I was doing it, we had, you know, it's about like it's, you know, a 60-40 split between 60% self-defense and 40% groundwork. But you're looking at, you know, say there's one attack where you're being grabbed by the lapel this way and by the shoulder, someone's dragging you this way. And the thing with seeing a technique like that and drilling it over and over again is you get that clear distinction of what the technique is, right? If that makes sense. So wrestling, a lot of it is feeling, but in jiu-jitsu, like I've got a Hoist Gracie self-defense book there, and I can pick up that book and I can look in it and I can go, right, that's that. This is the motion from that. Okay. So in that defense, I was sharing with you on the Basai Dai again, that motion where you scoop down and bring it up, you drop your body weight in to kind of crease the elbow, and you scoop up to break the elbow or to dislocate the shoulder, I guess you would do with that. So that's one of the things that I found to be a good crossover between the jiu-jitsu, which would be different from what Les seems to experience, which is different from what you might experience. But what you guys are getting good is like is pressure testing, isn't it? And everything is measured by effect. Like you said, Les, if a throw works, doesn't matter how good it looks. Whereas in the karate we've done before, you've never had like a particularly 3K karate club, have you, Les? No. So everything had to look perfect. It didn't matter if it worked. That's the long and short of it, isn't it? You know, in those karate clubs.
Well, if I've been in a club like that, I would be still a green belt, because one of Kyokushin requirements by the green belt is kicking Mawashigiri Jodan perfectly.
Right.
And I was worried, but I remember vividly. I said to my teacher, "Oh, I'm gonna pass this one. I can't kick because my hip's not allowing me." I said, "Just don't worry about it. Be fine."
Yeah. I think that's one of the strong things about grappling arts is everything. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It does not have to look perfect. So I guess that we're a little bit we're 35 minutes into the chat now, so I think we're clear to kind of start discussing what about people who refuse to accept that there's grappling. Like it's like banging your head against the brick wall, like we were talking in the Shotokan club that I snuck into. They just do not want to see it.
You know, back to my instructor. So if you were to ask me 30 years ago, are there any throws in karate? No throws in karate. Any grappling? Definitely not. It's all punching, kicking. That would be my answer.
You're talking about judo.
Right. Yeah, that's judo stuff. That's wrestling. You could not convince me 30 years ago that there was grappling in karate. When I started getting into the Bunkai stuff, I'd come to class, I'd show my instructors, "Hey, check this out. It's from Heian Godan. What do you think?" And he'd give a nod of approval, right? And he never really dabbled into it very much, but he did support me on what I was doing for a long time, and he could appreciate what I was trying to do is give meaning to Shotokan katas. And initially it was just all other people's ideas, and eventually I come up with some of my own. And he would have me teach sometimes. So, you know, years ago, if he had me teach, it'd be some kumite drill or something. And I had a video out and said, "Why don't you teach that tonight?" And he'd just step aside and watch it happen. So it was nice to get the support like that. But there's a lot of people who just refuse to believe, and I think that's an insecurity thing. So if you are a 50-year-old, 60-year-old person and you've been doing 3K karate for 20, 30, 40 years, straight lines up and down the dojo, have good form and everything, and maybe you've done some competition where you're not allowed to grab in the JKA kind of tournaments, and then you get some guy saying, "No, that's not a block, you're cranking a shoulder, or this is a takedown, or this," and they don't know any of that. And I think out of ego, it's easy and convenient for them to dismiss it as nonsense, because it really exposes how little they understand their own art. Right? It's definitely an ego thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, it's difficult to admit that you're wrong sometimes, especially when you're so invested in something.
Yeah, especially if you've been invested decades in training, and to find out. Now, for me, when I first saw Abernethy do, it was I think the first video I saw of his was this part.
Pinangodan, yeah, jump.
Yeah, and then you do the jump.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a left hand grip on the collar. He comes up here and he does the Ippon Seiyonage, and he drops down. He just twists his hands like in this kind of position. That's your Juji-uki. And I'm like, I just blown away. And there's another one he does. It's very simple, but the opening movement's 1, 2, then you do that funny stand-up thing. And someone's grabbing, you anchor. I was teaching this today to my high school kids, actually. You anchor, smash the bicep, you smash the neck. There's your uchi-uki. You crank on the arm again, like they do this, and you punch across the jaw, grab their head, and you twist as you turn up, and there's your flowing water position. So for me, when I first started seeing this stuff, I was just, my mind was blown, and it was so exciting. And for me, it was a relief because for years, I was told, Kata, do kata, it'll make your kumite better, right? Your kata, kumite, kion, your 3Ks are so important. But as Ian always says, never 3Ks, never shall the 3 meet or something, right? Because they're 3 separate entities. But for me, I really got excited to see meaning in kata because I was having questions about this. Like, well, when I do kumite, I don't move anything like kata, nothing. In fact, I was having trouble with my footwork in kumite. I had very fast hands when I was young, but I couldn't move. Didn't have the footwork because we didn't do a lot of that in our dojo. So I actually went to I can't remember, Shitaru or Chitaru, but he's world champion and a local guy here in Halifax. He was world champion in his organization, I think also with what is now called the WKF. So I learned footwork from him. But yeah, they're not, the kata and the kumite, they're 2 separate entities. But and so for me, it was just something to work on to perfect your technique. But then it had meaning behind the movements. And that, so I was completely open-minded about the whole thing because it was a relief for me. But so I can't really relate to, I can't to the people who just dismiss it as being nonsense or as, okay, that's fine for them, but for us, it's just for body movement.
Yeah. I think I've got like obsessive tendencies. I think I mentioned this to you, Les, like months ago, but like I think I might be slightly on the autistic spectrum somewhere where, you know, if I get into something, I get into it. And the quote unquote mistake I made when it came to like exploring these ideas was I saw some of like I said before, Jesse Enkamp, he's a great gateway drug into practical martial arts, right? He does videos, he shows you different applications of Bunkai. I'm not annoying you talking about all my Les because I know you've had a bad experience. Okay, but yeah, so then he leads on to Ian's work, your work, Andy, and more recently your work. But then I started consuming, and then I'm learning about Okinawa, and then I'm learning about, you know, all these other things. And I remember Ian's got an episode of the podcast which is called Occam's Hurdled Katana, right? Which is that move in Heian Godan that we're talking about, Pinan Godan, where the 3K description of it is someone's slicing at your legs with a samurai sword. Right. You're jumping over them, you're like tapping them on the nose with this, and you're turning your back on them. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I've been told. Why did I believe that? You know?
I know, it's so illogical.
Yeah.
But here's the culture of conformity, not asking questions, right? Because even in the West, we kind of learned somewhere that you just
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, speaking of asking questions and questioning things, Les, this is something that you spoke about on your podcast on the comment I made. So the culture that you were brought up in, were you allowed to sort of ask questions and explore stuff?
We've been always told to ask questions. That's why not many people like that on seminars. Because my teacher was always, you know, if you don't ask, you don't know. If you've got a problem, the only way to solve it is to ask somebody who is more advanced in it. So I encourage my students to ask questions. It's actually funny because we went with my wife's group, and my wife actually went with us. She's doing the different type of karate we should do. We went for Ian's seminar first time. and they all the group who didn't ask questions, and me, of course, was talking all the seminar with Ian. So we've been arguing, not arguing, but exchanging ideas about throw, because Ian's build is completely different to mine, and things he can pull off from judo perspective completely didn't work. So I was showing from the wrestling, I wouldn't do that. So I spent talking with Ian. Everybody was kind of looking at me. Why is he asking questions? Why is he asking questions? And that's the way I am. I ask questions. I ask difficult questions, and hence I am excluded from groups, from clubs. I've been thrown away in UK from the first club I joined in. Because I had my own opinion. I wanted to do my stuff my way, and I've been accused of stealing students, which they moved with me to do stuff I do. So yeah, I only can say if you've got questions, just ask them. There's no stupid questions.
But you're with a guy like Ian. Ian's happy to talk about karate. He loves answering questions, whether it be in the middle of the seminar or around the breakfast table at the residential thing, right? And he'll talk all day long about karate. But I've been at seminars before, 3K seminars, and we're working on a kata. Let's say it doesn't really matter. Goju Shosho, let's say, and there's a movement where you have this tate shutoke, this kind of movement, right? And I don't ask questions. I never ask questions because I knew I wouldn't get good answers. And it's just because they don't know. So you ask, what is this for? In broken English, the response I got one time is set positions. You're getting ready for your punch.
Right, yeah.
That's my Higate shirt sign. So it's nonsense. That Shoke is a beautiful thing. It can be an index. It can make space. It can cover eyes. You can rake eyes with it. There's all kinds of things you can. It's in so many Shotokan kata. I'm going to do a video sometime. It has a lot of great applications, very practical, but it's not a set position.
Looking into the sun.
Yeah. So I won't say his name because he might not want me to mention it, but he has a pretty big Facebook group, and he sent me a video of these guys training teki or nahanshi. And they're on, the kind of benches you'd see in a gymnasium for the basketball team to sit on. They're yay high. So they're standing on these benches and they're doing the hanshi teki on the benches. And he just sent this to me through Facebook Messenger and said they have no idea about what they're doing because they're just working on balance, right? Probably working on their embusen, their lines, and make sure their feet stay in a straight line so they don't drift off of the bench as they do their crossover steps. But that's the kind of training you see is this. That's creative for them or innovative. Is let's work on our balance and do kata on a bench.
Do kata backwards or different.
I think to be honest,
help you with understanding.
There's I've been, since leaving my organization and like mixing with more open-minded people, I've mentioned this to a comment with Chris Hansen the other day, just on I can't remember which thread, but I've been fairly like anti 3K over the past few years. But at the end of the day, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing. That's okay. But it just kind of it's when they sort of refuse to engage and refuse to explore that's when I start kind of getting a bit pissed off with it all, But anyway, that's them. And
yeah, and in terms of being open-minded, I mean, I can be kind of pig-headed about things. I'll admit it. Just ask my wife. But being open-minded, if someone says I'm closed-minded because I won't accept that kata is for body movement, or that hikate is for power, or all the other myths that exist in karate, I feel I'm qualified to dismiss that because I lived it for decades. I lived it, and I came to the conclusion on my own that none of this makes sense. So it's not like I came from a MMA background and I'm looking at karate and laughing at all these nonsense stories. It's I experienced it firsthand. I was taught it, and I had the time to reflect about the things I've been taught over the years by very, very high-ranking Japanese masters, and after some exposure to practical karate, whatever you want to call it, applied karate, and a bit of grappling, I've come to the conclusion that that doesn't work. So I don't think I'm closed-minded for dismissing those myths, because I used to believe them myself.
Yeah, you've seen both sides of the coin, whereas they refuse to even take a peek around the corner at the other side of the coin.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Because they're told bad things around that corner.
I kind of let people do what they want to do. What I'm looking in is the honesty. So if you are doing the free K karate because you are aware of it, you know what it comes with, and you're enjoying it, fine by me. If you do practical karate and you narrow-minded and you don't know why you're doing it because you're just part of the club, you should look outside as well. I do kata for movement, but I know that I'm doing them for movement because my students have a benefit of it. They're 70 years old, but I don't tell them that they're gonna get magical powers of self-defense if they're gonna do the kata a million times. You upfront what you're giving them, what they're gonna learn, why you're doing this, and there's no problem. You can do sports karate, whatever you want to.
So if you don't practice the karate for those benefits, how do your students manage their chi? Do they like learn it another way, or?
Oh, they're always so big that they're bending frames when they're going through the doors.
Got it. So that kind of leads me to something else I wanted to talk about. But I had only planned on going for an hour. Are you guys happy to potentially run over a little bit, or are you on a schedule?
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Okay, sure. So that kind of goes with you were saying, Les, that you do your kata for movement. You do it for that reason, and you take a more practical approach to it. So the thing I'm looking at now is the position I'm in. I have inherited a system with a children's martial arts program. Once they qualified or became old enough, they would move up to a kickboxing class, which effectively it's just the sort of continuous sparring portion of the thing and pad work. Which, speaking of pad work, by the way, it blows my mind that most karate clubs don't do pad work. I could not believe it when Ian told me when I spoke to him. But
I didn't do it forever. We had pads. I was amazing at crushing air molecules, but we just didn't do any pad work. And if we did, you're in a Zen Kutsudashi, a down block, and you're how you're Shotokan guy, the Kime.
I'm actually Shotokai.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so how dare you?
but hitting Ian Abernathy's been talking about the purpose of Kime. Kind of stole my thunder. It was going to be one of the things I was going to write about. But that tension at the end, the mechanics of kicking and punching in air are different than the mechanics of kicking and punching a target. They're not the same. I can remember I started karate when I was 19, and Mom bought me a heavy bag, so I was still living at home, hung in the basement. I can remember the first time I threw a roundhouse kick. My foot kind of bounced off it, and it was only a 60-pound bag. It wasn't heavy. I thought that is very unsatisfying because we were taught to snap back, but to never actually penetrate a target. I could do a nice whippy roundhouse kick, but it was you have to hit things in order to learn how to hit. You're just not going to be able to hit hard otherwise.
No, definitely. I think that's one positive thing, one of the many positive things of being in a modern school. So based on Kyokushin and Ashihara, they very early incorporated everything on the back. So huge shields, tie pad stars and gloves and stuff. So from day one, I've been into the punch bags and stuff like that. So I never, but we've done a lot of Kihon in the air as well, and that's one of the reasons that so many karateka have knees change and hips change. It's just different mechanics, like Andy said. Kicking something, it's stopping you instead of overextending your joints.
It's fortunately, while like you say that we did a lot of sort of kime in there as well, but we did pad work was like a fairly integral part of the training, which I was lucky for. I was just happened to be talking. I don't know if this name means anything, but he's another potentially controversial character when it comes to talking about martial arts. But Matt Fidesz, he's ex-taekwondo guy, and he used to be Michael Jackson's bodyguard. So I just happened to be on a call with him the other day, and he was saying that a lot of the sort of high-level, sort of high kickers have had to have their hips replaced twice, 3 times because of all this high kicking. And like, for what purpose, right? There's no point to it. So, like, to kind of bring the conversation back on track with syllabus, then. I've seen a lot of sort of footage about your syllabus, Andy. I gotta say, I really am impressed with the depth. Go ahead.
With 70 pages of Andy's syllabus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think you teach the kids to run before they can walk. But you know,
I do. I've been told a couple times lately. Since that,
it's a very in-depth seminar, syllabus. But Les, I virtually know nothing of yours, so let's go to you first. What's your syllabus like?
So I am completely opposite to Andy, as Andy is super organized. Everything is written down properly. First thing, I don't have a syllabus for students. They can have access to it, but syllabus is for me to have a point of reference where I want to take my students. They don't need to know it, although if they want it, I send it to them. And I do assessments, so I don't do gradings. Although sometimes we do gradings, but usually they are unannounced and during the session. So I went like BJJ and we award. So I look through people's for the year. I've got gradings once a year. I assess if they are worthy. They give me a nice tip, chocolate or something. They've got a grade. And from the 5th Q, so green belt, I do a external assessment. So we're doing quite a few seminars over the year with different teachers. So ask somebody, at least 2 or 3 people, to check up my work if I'm not getting biased. And we get creating our bubble, and we like certain stuff. And I have always somebody to come and tell me, listen, this is not looking right, or just to check my work if I'm doing it correctly or not. And I kind of get rid of lots of stuff from my syllabus. So I color a lot of stuff because I didn't like the idea that the beginners learning a lot of stuff and then it's kind of narrowing. So I inverted the pyramid, and we're doing a syllabus kata based. So the 10th Q is of ceremonies and some basics, so they know how to move. And then 9th Q is starting with the Pinan Shodan, although some call it the Pinan Nidan. You know the problems with the karate.
Yeah.
So the first kata and all the kihon is from that kata. There's nothing else. That's all what we do. And Bunkai is an application, and then we do Bunkais in the same time, an application from the day one. And everybody goes. I use kata as a kihon, and we do it on the end of the session. I'm gonna be probably told off because of that, but we do it as a cool down. So after all the parts and work, we're starting the last 15 minutes doing a high-speed kata, which people hate, seems to be hating, and then slowing them down to cool down. So all the students doing all the katas up to the first dan. So then when it comes to the grading that kata, they polish in the kata, and as well as they going through the grades, we dropping the kata for them. So they learn, let's say, 5 pinans. By the green belt, they choosing their favorite one from the pinans. They're going up to the first dan. They need to have 3 favorite katas that suits them, and they know throughout. How do you say it? They know
Throughout.
it. They know it throughout, and they can tell me everything about it. And from the 3rd dan, they choosing the one kata which they specialize in it. So it's 4 katas. By the time they are 5th dan, they need to know. They know the outlay and basic combination and stuff. So it's nobody's without the knowledge of any kata we're doing, but the specialization is in the given kata they chosen or I tell them to do.
Cool.
So that in a nutshell.
It seems like quite a sort of free, like say maybe less structured, less formal way of
I call it open syllabus.
Yeah, that's a good phrasing for it. I like that. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I like is not the formal gradings where they turn up and they show their stuff and go that you, when they're ready, they get awarded a belt. Is that right?
Yeah. That's all. That's because I'm working with a lot of people with disabilities and autism, and although they need to have a structure, I noticed that they're getting super stressed about it, and the ability goes down a lot. So I rather do a unnoticed examination, and I just like I done it for Danny, my autistic student. We done his last grading on a class. There was not many people, so I thought, well, let's go through all the katas. We couldn't do combinations and human being throws and stuff like that. So okay, let's do the examination for him, and after that, you tell him, or you just pass your grading, and he's been over the moon without being stressed.
Yeah. You do see that with adults. It's that performance anxiety, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you see it, Andy, with your school as well. They know that it's grading day, and even like the guys have been under like the biggest pressure in their day-to-day jobs. They turn up to your class. If you're anything like me, you don't turn up on the day to grade unless you're ready to grade, right? And so they, for all intents and purposes, know that they're going to pass because they wouldn't be there if they weren't ready for the belt, and still they're shitting bricks about it. Like,
although I would say that the formal grading got a place. When there is like a black belt grading or something, I do grading because it's that just I don't know, it's just formality of it, and a little bit of a stress is needed as well. You cannot just keep them safe all the time.
No, of course.
Yeah, I like the idea of the formal grading, and like you said, John, I those 3 boys I had tested in my shed a few weeks ago for their yellow belt. I wouldn't have tested them if I didn't think they were ready. Right? But they've been training since September, so they had 5-6 months under their belt, so to speak, and they were doing really well. They were showing they understood the drills, and they could show during live training they could make some things happen too. So right, here's a date you guys are going to test. Whereas some other students have been training just as long, but they're not ready yet. They're not going to test for a little while yet. So they're going to pass, like you said, Les. But I like the idea of having a day where there's a bit of anxiety, and they know that they have to perform. They don't know that I'm going to pass them anyway. Hope they're not watching this.
Now they know.
Yeah, unless they really screw up, right? But they have to perform. You got to remember your kata. You got to hit the pads hard. You're going to fight with each other. You got to make things happen. And I think for most people, like unless you deal with a lot of people with some disabilities, and maybe not appropriate for them, but for a lot of people, having a day that's kind of coming up in your calendar where I got this thing going on, it's going to be tough. I'm going to be exhausted, and last guy that tested, he threw up. I think a little bit of stress is okay. So I'm a high school teacher by trade, right? And there is an incredible lack of resiliency among young people now. It's disheartening that they don't know how to handle adversity. And either it's not just parenting, it's society, it's a school system. They're not required to figure things out on their own. So in some tiny kind of way, I'm going to give them an opportunity to rise.
Yeah. I think I'll just wait for. Hey, I'm glad you came back. You just in time. I'm about to raise a point that you might be interested in.
Sorry, I've got a cat and the children are sleeping and he just screams. So I'm a slave to my cat. I'm on the lower end of the home ladder food chain. I do what he tells me.
I'm in the same boat as you there, buddy. So we're talking about how kids kind of need, especially teenagers, sometimes have a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of stress because they grow up not to be able to, if they're not given it in the early ages in like managed doses, then they grow up to not be as resilient or emotionally tough. This not the direction I was expecting this conversation to take, but I was speaking with one of my friends who's a mental health professional. And one of the things that he said is quite like a profound statement, that a lot of mental health issues, anxieties, and stuff like that today in individuals. This is not saying on the whole that none of that exists. I know a lot of people don't really believe in mental health, but in some cases, it's not a mental health issue. It's just not being prepared for like day-to-day adult life and the stresses of adult life. And I think that's our responsibility, is to help. You know, it's our place to put controlled pressure on people. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I don't teach children, but if I teach children, they definitely will have examinations.
Yeah.
I think the whole policy of everybody's a winner is gonna backfire. You know, you need to have
Yes.
people. Yeah, you need to have people losing. So you just have to explain to them, he's not losing, he's learning. So I'll do that to my son. You know, he's at the stage now when his sister is 2 years old younger, but he needs to go everywhere first. He needs to be first. He needs to win. He needs to do stuff. So you know, you need to give him that stuff. No, you actually don't have to be first. It's okay to be second. Okay to be third. If you gave your best, you've got room for improvement. You need to understand that as a lesson. And I think
Yeah.
that the karate is great for that. You know, although I'm not doing the formal examinations, I teach the control failure. I think that's the benefit of karate, the control failure. People get stressed when something's not happening, and you just have to explain, you know, it's not gonna happen over one day. You come for a training and you're gonna have a beautiful kicks to the head. Look at me, 25 years and still can kick to the head. But you know, you overcome it, you learn it. The situation is stressful. It is, you know, huge stress for people coming to the dojo and start training. You know, especially if you like my dojo, is all adults, and on one stage it was 90% of blokes. So for a woman coming into environment like that, it's stressful. Now it's 50-50, so it's kind of more friendly. But then you know, you coming in, you're looking at my face, and you're thinking, wow, he's already angry. And it's stressful. So you know, yeah, I agree that we need to have a stressful moments, and it's beneficial for mental health, but it needs to be explained to people as well. You know,
Yeah.
you do a guy. Imagine that you do grading to children, and they get stressed and stuff like that, but you making it fun and after finish, so they don't associate that stress with something negative, but with something positive. And I think that was lacking in education now. Everybody wants to have children, or don't do that because you're gonna get hurt, or don't do that because it's gonna be, you know, you're gonna get upset, or you know, don't cry, don't do this. We need to allow them to do things, but you know, I don't teach children, so it's difficult for me to speak.
No, I mean, I like. I'm glad that you brought up that controlled failure thing, because when I was reading the intro to your karate journal, like I'll give you the shameless plug right there. The karate journal that I was reading, and it mentioned that controlled failure, and I really like that sort of turn of phrase for it. It's like, yeah, we do fail. Everybody fails. If we don't fail, we don't grow. Simply. I think it's in Batman Begins. What's his face? Alfred says to young Bruce, "Why do we fall?" And so we can learn to pick ourselves back up again. Right. So let's like go way back to where we were before we started talking about this, and go to Andy's syllabus.
Different than Les's.
Yeah.
So mine is very organized, and it's not 70 pages less, but it's damn close to it.
69 and a half.
I need things organized on paper or electronically or something to keep myself organized. It's to have requirements listed for 8th Q test, for 7th Q test. It helps keep me focused in my teaching, not getting too far off track where I think, you know, yellow belt should be learning and so on. It just, I like the structure of that. And also, I think some students, at least, like the idea, I want to know what I need to know.
Yeah.
And as a classroom teacher, it's the same way. You have a test on Friday. Well, what's it on? I give an itemized list. You need to know this biochemical process, these vocabulary items. You need to understand how these two processes are related. And it gives them guidance in terms of how they're going to direct their own studying. Now, by admission, I don't think I'm teaching my students to run before they can walk. But I need to start doing some culling of my own syllabus. So when I first wrote it, it's really difficult to sit down the first time doing this and write organized things on paper without ever having to do it. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I have to actually implement the syllabus. I don't want to throw something down just to kind of fill this blank. I need to make sure it's something I want to do, something that I value doing. But what and the things that I have in there, there's a few things I'm taking out. But for the most part, I like everything I have in there, but it's just too much. And so I need to take out some things that are just kind of fillers and keep it more nuts and bolts. But yeah, so I have a WhatsApp group chat for my club, and in there, through there, the students have access to the curriculum document. I just have a PDF, and boom, there it is. Scroll down the green screen, and that's what you're going to be testing on for your green belt. So, and within the document, they'll say, there's a Bunkai drill for Hien Sandan guillotine choke escape. Click on the link. YouTube video. Here's a pad drills, yes, no. Click on the link. There's your pad drills for your yellow belt test. They're all right there in a video. I don't know how many kids look at them, because I say kids because most of my students are 15, 16 years old. But it's all there for them if they want to kind of keep on it. So I like organizing.
It's one of the things that you said about kind of culling the syllabus. When right, I went independent from my previous club in December of 2020, so I didn't have a whole lot of time before the whole world locked down to mix with people. Yeah. But I was lucky enough to have a training session with Peter Constantine before I joined the BCA. And one of the things he was explaining when it comes to writing a syllabus is you want to have like two boxes, which is one is the grading box, which is what you want to see for the grading, and the others, which is like the martial arts box, which we'll teach this stuff when I want to see it, but this is all I want to see on grading day, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen criticisms of your yellow belt grading being 2 hours, Andy, but I kind of like it. It toughens them up, right?
Yeah, and you know what? It's I've done those boys were doing pretty well. So I did some extra stuff that I wouldn't have most white belts be doing. For example, in my syllabus, the Jui Kumite, the sparring they do, the karate sparring, is supposed to be just straight punches. But if you watch the video, they're doing straight punches. They're allowed some hooks. They're allowed some leg kicks and body kicks. No kicks to the head. I said, "You guys okay with that?" Yep, because we do them all the time in the dojo anyway. Let's go do it. And I think the matches of the Newaza, instead of 1 minute, were 2 minutes. So I knew I could get away with it with them, whereas some other kids might gas out, might get overwhelmed. But I figure if I can get another 45 minutes out of them, I'll do it. And also I had 3 boys, so there's some times where we didn't have a partner, so there's 2 guys go and then another person subs in, so it took a bit of time. So there was a lot of rest built into that 2 hours, which normally there wouldn't be. I could get to the test normally in an hour and a half, which I think is it's still a hell of a lot longer than a 3K test, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I didn't understand what the issue was, because if you look on the Kyokushin one, they are like 8 hours long.
Yeah.
Even for lower belts.
Yeah, you have to go through all the you're sitting there and doing nothing. You do your job, you're staying, but then you go into the fighting. It depends on the dojo, and you 8 hours.
Jeez.
Waiting for your turn though.
Yeah.
So I only had 3 kids, but still it's 3 hours, not a lot of shitting around. But this guy, I forget what form this was. Okay, I won't say, just out of respect, what form it was, but it's one of those Facebook groups that the demographic are very traditional Shotokan people.
You can DM us after.
So, and I know where they're coming from, because a lot of these people, their yellow belt test is 10 minutes. You're going to do a couple minutes of Kion. You're going to do your Kata, your 3-step sparring, done. Here's your yellow belt. And I mean, that's what I used to teach alongside the practical stuff. But that's what I used to use for grading purposes until I left. So by that, if that's what you consider acceptable for a yellow belt test, then I understand why you would think my test is too long. But at the end of the day, I don't give a rat's ass what they think, because they're not there in my dojo. They don't see what I'm teaching. They don't see the students progress. They don't understand that I'm not going to let someone test until they're ready, whether it's 5 months or 10 months. And I try to tell the students, just, forget about the belt color around your waist. If it's yellow, if it's green, whatever, be an awesome yellow belt. Don't be a mediocre green belt.
It's the old Hoist Gracie quote, isn't it? A black belt only covers 2 inches of your ass, and you have to cover the rest.
Yeah.
So not to get too obsessed about the rank and the belt color. Cool. So I think it's a good time to wrap it up on that. So why don't we take a second to you guys plug your sort of social medias, your groups, Les, where can they find you online, and what other stuff can you? So this is a chance for you to talk about your books and stuff as well, I guess.
Oh, okay. So mainly everything can be found under my name. So Les Bubka or Les Bubka Karate Jutsu. Karate for Mental Health group on the Facebook, if anybody wants to join in. If you would like to join in, please do me a favor and read and reply to the questions, because it drives me nuts that daily I have to cancel about 20 requests, which people says, are you going to apply to the rules? And there's no answer. So it's immediately gone. People just can't read.
So I see what you do. You instead of kicking them out of the group, you just don't let them in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
I only want people who understand what they're reading.
Yeah.
It saves my admin skills for people who are actually misbehaving. But all the books can be found on the Amazon. YouTube channel now changed the name to Les Bubka Karate Jutsu. If you want to listen to my annoying voice and Paul's English skills, you are most welcome.
Good. Andy?
Okay, you can join my Facebook group, Applied Shotokan by Andy Allen. We just hit 5,000 members. It's not like the Karate Geek out there, but we're growing. You can find me on Instagram, Applied Shotokan. And on YouTube, I have a blog, which I've very much neglected for the past year, but I hope to start writing again soon. It is appliedshotokan.com. So the stuff I'm writing about, it could be kind of ideas like the training scars you referenced, Les. Also, I often write about critiques about, I rock the boat a little bit. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out, appliedshotokan.com.
Good. It's really important to rock the boat from time to time, because that's how people get their sea legs, which is what I posted in my group. Who was it? Bob Davis, Robert Davis, the Bunkai bastards started giving me shit straight immediately wandering the group. They were kicking off. But hey, there we go. Gents, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. We've covered some good ground, a lot of stuff that I didn't expect we'd get into, but yeah, as soon as I've got it up, I'll get it edited and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, thanks a lot, and I'll catch up with you on Facebook and all that soon.
Pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
So thanks for checking in again this week, guys. I hope you took some ideas away from that. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe down below. And if you have anything to say, be it positive or negative, I always enjoy hearing other people's opinions and engaging either way. Don't forget that you can pick up some sick martial arts casual wear over at artmartialclothing.com. And if you use the code SPIRIT at checkout, you can get 20% off your order. That's excluding outlet items, but that also helps you support the Warrior Spirit clan by doing so. Thanks again, guys. I'll catch you soon.